Storage Wars is a show that prides itself on not just an eclectic group of characters, but going full tilt at times and getting some absolutely crazy items that aren't just amazing to behold, but sell really well. And sometimes it's downright shocking the things the Storage Wars crew found in those storage lockers. So with that being said, allow us to show you Storage Wars findings that were insanity. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 8. The Holy Grail of Lockers. Daryl Sheets, known as the Gambler, is known for making major purchases on gut instinct alone, and more times than not, getting paid big time as a result. In this case, it came in the form of a comic book and toy collection that he purchased back in Season 5, which he literally dubbed the Holy Grail of Toys. The locker contained an endless supply of G.I. Joes, Hot Wheels, and a whole host of other collectible dolls and toys, along with an absolutely massive collection of comics. We're talking 3,000 books, which Mr. Sheets valued at approximately $10 a piece. The count kept rising as Sheets tallied up the mountains of collectibles, finally settling on a total that topped $90,000. It's important to re-emphasize that these aren't modern toys that were found. They were a plethora of vintage and classic toys and cars that were extremely valuable. Hot Wheels especially are valuable if you have the right car, the right year, and more. Number 7. Video Game Collection. Moving from comics to video games, the first episode of Season 10 featured another huge find. This time going to bidder Renee Nezhoda, who landed the locker for a meager $1,500. The haul? Video games. Lots of them. The collection was monstrous, filling up a large locker and clearly assembled by a collector who knew their stuff. Throughout the very long process of adding up the endless procession of vintage entertainment pieces, it quickly became apparent that this wasn't just a massive pile of surplus. There was nary a duplicate in the mix, with the dusty piles of memorabilia containing everything from rare Sega Genesis games to a copy of the NES game Bubble Bobble Part 2 that was worth several $100s on its own. The whole collection, once it had been painstakingly counted up, was worth upwards of $50,000. That just shows how much the video game industry has grown in terms of popularity and vintage value. Number 6. Vending machines. Backing things up to the early moments of Season 2, in the second episode of the season, Dave Hester weaseled his way into a locker purchase that was very much worth it. At first glance, the unit seemed to be full of nothing but old, broken vending machines, and Hester did his best to play it off as more trouble than it was worth. This turned out to be a crazy unique but worthy locker of purchase. Hester had managed to get a glimpse of newer models in the back. Once his bit of acting had discouraged others from bothering with the unit, he proceeded to snatch it up for the bargain price of roughly $1,300. And the master of misdirection made his way into the unit, where he proceeded to uncover a whopping $27,000 and then some in new and used vending machines. That's why you look for everything you can in the locker when it's open for you, because you never know what you might find. Number 5. Pirate Treasure. While Storage Wars has a long and successful run showcasing hundreds of different storage units and their contents, a couple of incidents have shown that the biggest finds don't always take place in front of the camera. This was the case when a story broke several years ago in which Dan Laura Dotson, the host of the show, revealed that an ecstatic new storage locker owner, who had chosen to remain anonymous, had gotten something truly legendary. In an interview, the pair examined how one lucky customer had picked up a pair of units for less than $2,000. Only to discover that one of them literally had pirate's treasure in it. From gold doubloons to pieces of 8, all 200 years or older, the haul added up to $500,000 in gold coins. Think about that. You go into a storage locker expecting to find valuables or memorabilia, not pirate gold. Number 4. Elvis memorabilia. Back in the early days of Storage Wars, Dave Hester happily filled the role of resident baddie, and he drove everyone nuts at times with his talk and swagger. But Hester was still a savvy player who did well during his time on the program. The best example of his success came all the way back in the first season, when Hester bought a storage unit that was loaded with newspapers. At first, it seemed that all Hester had done was purchase a load of outdated periodicals. But then he discovered that the stash was all from the same day, August 16th, 1977. Sound familiar? That's the day Elvis Presley died. The unit ended up being a gold mine, with a plethora of papers all sporting the king of rock and roll's face, adding up to a staggering $90,000. You could say he was all shook up. Number 3. Museum worthy. Renee Nezhoda and his wife Casey picked up a locker during Season 6 that paid astronomical dividends. This time though, rather than vintage games, the haul had much more of a night at the museum vibe to it. As the couple began unloading the treasures, They discovered an endless procession of high-value pieces that ranged from a beautiful grandfather clock in mint condition to a set of Baroque by Wallace Collectible Silver that was easily worth at least $2,000. Along with an oil canvas painting that came with its own self-valuing paperwork, stating it was worth $8,000. The collection ended up including, among other things, pictures, model ships, artistic flower pots, and statues. And they weren't just from one locale either. Some of the pieces hailed from places as distant as Africa and Asia. It was the kind of event that you chase your whole career, as Renee put it. By the time all was said and done, the jubilant couple was practically standing in a museum. What was the value? $50,000 minimum. Shocking, right? Number 2. Marshall and Wendell. While he wasn't particularly remembered for his huge paydays, Barry Weiss, known as the Collector, was a staple of the show during its early seasons. But back in the 4th episode of Season 1, he got something truly special. In the episode, an oddball locker was opened up that seemed to be filled with nothing more than salon paraphernalia. Apparently dead set on opening up his own barbershop, Weiss snapped up the unit for $275. When he got inside though, he was pleasantly surprised to find a 1928 Marshall & Wendell piano among the hair supplies. The value? Between $10,000 and $12,000. For what he paid for it, that's one heck of a get. Most storage locker people are happy if they get a certain amount of profit, but to pay hundreds and get thousands in return? Yeah, that's pretty special. Number 1. The Frank Gutierrez Collection. If you search for the biggest recorded find on the show, chances are one storage unit is going to show up every time. The unit was purchased way back in Season 3 by none other than Daryl Sheets, the gambler himself. Sheets is famous for his gunslinging bids that occasionally pay off and just as often leave him with next to nothing. But as we've shown you before, when he hits big, he hits big. He spent a paltry, in retrospect at least, $3,600 on a locker that looked interesting but not particularly special. Imagine the big shot surprise when he discovered that it was home to a whole slew of paintings by Frank Gutierrez. When the proud new owner brought in an art expert to price the stash out, he was floored to find out that the whole collection was worth upwards of $300,000. While some disagreed with the appraisal, according to the show's stated value, it remains one of the largest storage unit finds on record. Sometimes it pays to gamble, kids. That doesn't mean you should gamble every time you see a piece of art, though. Seriously, don't do that. While there's no doubt that Sheets here made a killing on this art collection, that doesn't mean that every piece of art you see in the storage locker is worth something. That's not how it works. Especially since a lot of people paint their own stuff and put it in storage lockers for keepsakes. But still, seeing something like this? Yeah, that's enough to get you into the auction world, no doubt. Especially if you can find things that can make you hundreds of thousands of dollars on a single locker purchase. Who wouldn't be tempted by that? So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Storage Wars and how things got very insane with their findings at times? Which of these items were you the most shocked by in terms of the Storage War finds? Did you think that these finds would be that famous or worth that much? Which of them was your favorite? Do you know other finds that could have made this list? Let us know in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.